Hey, welcome back, and we begin on the title screen this time, because there's a little something here, a neat little kind of almost Easter egg-ish thing that I thought would be neat to make sure I show off at some point, so, Oh, also, one thing about this episode, it's gonna be mostly backtracking and item collection, and, full disclosure, I just tried recording this episode, and the game crashed, so I scrapped that recording, and I'm going again. So that sound you're hearing is actually the sound, it's a pretty, like, almost perfect recreation of the sound you hear on the title screen of the original Game Boy game. I just thought that was neat. That aside, yeah, I'm having to redo this episode, but I learned something over the course of my first attempt, which is trying to commentate and backtrack for the items isn't working really well. I'm getting a little too distracted with my attempts to commentate. I wrote down like a bunch of topics to try and fill the air while I'm just kind of doing this boring backtracking. Yeah, it's really distracting me pretty bad, so I think I'm actually gonna pipe down and just be quiet and focus, and hit up those conversation topics in post. So this is not gonna be me talking live after this, it's just gonna be talking after the fact, so take it away, future me. Future Yellow here, and I also want to point out that I have a correction to make to a couple things I said earlier that are kind of important, but that aside, I have a new mic at this point. It took me a bit to get around to recording the post-commentary for this episode, so that's, funnily enough, future Galuf might actually sound a little different than past Galuf, even though it's only a difference of, I don't know, what, like a week or two? Something like that. I'm glad I took notes on the conversation topics, because I already forgot one of the things I was going to point out, which is, there are some disadvantages to recording so much all at once. Like, I recorded the first 9 episodes of this LP in one recording session, basically, one day, so when I found a way to do things better, that didn't end up taking effect until episode 10 here, unfortunately. But you might have noticed sometimes when I was turning the UI on and off, like the health display, the minimap, and all that, sometimes the whole screen it kind of had like a weird flicker thing, like it displayed the wrong image for a few frames of video or something like that. And that's fixed now. I basically found a better way to do what I was doing in OBS, so the flickering will not happen anymore. So that's, it's a shame I didn't find that, like, before I started the LP. Basically, the way I was doing this was just, like, I didn't realize, I guess, that in OBS you could set one hotkey for multiple things, or, like, it just didn't occur to me that that would work. And, that's what I did from this recording on, where it's just, like, one hotkey, turns off all 3 of those overlay things. I don't know if I described how I was doing this before. So I basically had, like, I have one version. Oh yeah, I wanted to comment on this here. I completely just, like, kind of ignored this in the first episode, but yeah, the, like, dead space police guys. That's some good, just, like, visual background storytelling. That's good. I like that. The way I was recording this to get it to look like this, I told OBS to capture the game window, and that's getting, like, both screens, and then I cropped it to just the top screen, and that's how you get what you see with Samus without any of the UI. Then I told OBS to capture the game window a second time, and I cropped that to just, like, the health and missiles and stuff. And then I captured it again and cropped it to the Aeon bar, and then I captured it again and cropped it to the minimap, and gave it a little transparency, and then I cropped it again and to, like, the another one to, like, the Metroid counter. I'll get off that topic for a moment here, because there's something coming up that I want to talk about. Something else that I want to talk about. Also, you notice the transition there. I did make some edits to this, because this episode was long, and it would have been like 3 videos. Now it'll just be 2, because I cut out some of the more pointless wandering around when I was lost. So up here you're going to see me do, in a moment, some melee counter stuff, because I didn't realize there is actually, if you're running when you do the melee counter, and you keep holding the direction, you actually do that like quick counter, and then you just kind of keep moving right afterward, whereas if you let go of the stick, you're in the counter animation for longer before you can get moving again. And all this kind of ties into, I'll get back to what I was saying earlier, this all kind of ties into one of the first main topics I wanted to talk about, which is the way this game feels to play, kind of the pace of it. You're gonna see me fail a bit in this room, if I remember right. This game has, to me, a bit more of a... I don't know how much of this I've talked about in any other videos, so hopefully I'm not repeating myself too much, but this game has a bit of a slow, deliberate pace to it, I feel, compared to some of the other Metroid games. And part of that comes down to it being the handheld game. The screen is like all crunched, so they can't let you go too fast. Otherwise, you would just be constantly running into enemies off-screen that you couldn't see and react to in time. They had to slow you down, your movement speed a bit down in this game to compensate. And I can kind of feel that when I play this compared to some of the other games. Not really compared to the other handheld games so much, probably, but there's a couple of games that feel a lot, you feel a lot faster. Like, AM2R barely counts because that's a fan game, but I think maybe like running in Super Metroid definitely felt faster than this, actually. And then there's like well, I might as well say the upcoming Dread definitely feels a lot smoother and faster. But then there's the other thing of it, the whole melee counter system. Oh, I guess I was done in that area. I did take tallies of the items I could get at this point, and I missed something though on the surface. You'll see in the final video that I'll go get something with power bombs that I actually could have gotten now. So whoops! I thought that the highest item percentage I could get was 78.6, but you can actually get 85.7% of the items on the surface at this point. Here in Area 1, the goal is going to be 92.9%. That, like, last item we're going to be missing here we can't get yet. But anyway, back to what I was saying, there's the whole melee counter system, and it's really cool and I like it. I think it's really fun to use, but I could see why some people might not like it in this game. There is something to the way that it kind of slows down the pace of the game, I think. And that's why I was trying to demonstrate up on the surface, is like, when you're running along and you do the counter, you just come to a dead stop. So if you're trying to like quickly get through areas, you really kind of feel that, I think. It contributes a lot to where I say I feel like this game has kind of a very slow, deliberate pace compared to some. And that might not be everyone's cup of tea. I don't mind it, but it is different. And I could see why some people might not like it. And I kind of wonder how speedrunners in particular feel about it. And it's not just the way the counter feels, though there's part of it. There's the way you come to a dead stop and everything in it. At least you can do the quick counter, which I didn't even realize until this, like, recording, basically. But at the same time, it's like, you have to be so much more precise with your counter if you do the quick counter. All just for the sake of being able to move along faster. I don't know. It's not the best. There's a slight clunkiness to it. It's still a very fun thing to use, but it's really best as something when you're playing with a more slow play style, rather than trying to be fast. At least the way it's implemented here, I feel that's the case. I don't know... I'm not sure about the actual legit, like, speedrunner mindset, because that's so different from just merely trying to... Trying to speedrun a game is different from merely just trying to go fast. It employs so much of, like, tricks, and there's so much to it that it's not the same as casually trying to go faster at all. To the point even where, like, I feel like this game, for me, for someone who casually plays these games, that trying to go fast in this game, I could get some fun out of it, but I think it feels less good for a speed game to me, and would be less fun to try and go fast in than in some of the others. Although I don't know how that factors into the whole kind of like speedrunner mindset, because like I said, with how different that is, it's like I almost don't know how much it matters. I don't know. There's a thing with, like, at the point... I know even for speedrunners, some games feel more or less fun to run than others, but I'm not sure what all determines that exactly, and I'm not sure if this would actually feel any less fun than some of the others or not. It's just such a different thing at that point when you're talking about saving... when you're literally talking about saving frames rather than, like, saving seconds. Sometimes. And also the, like, amount of times that speedrunners... Oh yeah, that's like, that block is just a regular bomb block, which is funny because there's no way to get to it, without... The only way that you could get to it with regular bombs, at that point you wouldn't even need to bomb it and blow it up, so it's pointless. The only way you can destroy it with without coming back later is the power bomb. But yeah, speedrunners do so many attempts, the typical speedrunners, I think. You know, will sit there and play a game, like, not all at once, obviously, but they'll play the same game hundreds, if not thousands of times, and it's like, I think most of the time the game becomes not fun to play in a conventional, just like normal non-speedrunning way. So I'm not sure how much difference it makes how this game feels compared to the others. I'd be curious about that, how actual speedrunners feel about this versus, like, maybe not Super Metroid, because that game is so fundamentally broken from a speedrunning sense, the amount of crazy stuff you can do in that game, that makes that kind of a fun game more so than others, probably. But I would be curious how speedrunners feel about this game compared to other Metroid games that aren't too broken. But all that brings me to the correction I had to make. I mentioned something about the fastest time a speedrunner had gotten through this game in a 100% run, not being under 4 hours, not being able to get the best ending. And that is very incorrect. I guess I didn't commit to memory well enough what it was that I was looking at when I had those numbers in mind. But yeah, that was very mistaken, so I need to correct myself on that. So on speedrun.com, when I looked at this like a week or two ago, the fastest 100% run was just a little over 2 hours. And that's with or without glitches, actually. There was a slight difference in time between glitches and glitchless, but they were both just a little over 2 hours. They were less than 3 hours, so yes, speedrunners have 100%ed this game within the best ending requirement quite easily. What I was looking at, where they took longer, on hard mode, the fastest 100% run is over 5 hours. But people just aren't really running that category, from what I can tell, very much. I think there were only like a few people, a few runs up on the leaderboard. And I think it's probably just comes down to normal, probably being a more fun way to run this game from the speedrunning perspective, because a big thing with speedruns is just avoiding enemies, not wasting time as much as possible, obviously, and one of the things sometimes is even, like, damage boosting, just, like, eating a hit where you can afford to. So if you're playing normal mode, you can afford more of those kind of just eating hits, damage boost type of things. Damage boosting actually is probably more of a term usually used for getting hit and having it bounce you into something you otherwise would not have reached on your own, but it's also a thing to just eat a hit and keep moving when that's faster than any alternative. And yeah, you can afford more of that on normal mode, so it's probably just more fun to speedrun normal, and that's why not a lot of people have done hard mode, and no one's done hard mode 100% in under 4 hours yet. But on normal mode, yeah, they've got under 3 hours. Oh yeah, let's see, hard mode fastest 100% run was over 5 hours, and that was with out-of-bounds glitches. Glitchless hard mode, I think, when I looked, glitchless hard mode 100%. There was only one run up on the leaderboard, and that clocked in at 8 hours, 12 minutes, and 58 seconds, using the in-game time. It's funny for me that that's what's on the leaderboard for hard mode 100% glitchless. Just keep that time in mind, write it down if you want to. 8 hours, 12 minutes, 58 seconds. Let's see where I fall next to that, One thing about that, though. Well, first of all, I don't I think that run was probably just someone kind of casually seeing what they could do, and since there was nothing on the leaderboard, they put it up there. The other thing is, as far as where my time falls, one thing I'd be concerned about is how the emulator factors into the timing, how that affects the in-game timer, because I don't know what makes the in-game time move and what doesn't. I'm pretty sure that, like, I'm basically certain that cutscenes don't progress the timer, but I don't know what all does and doesn't. Like, for instance, basically here's the big thing I'm worried about. Does the in-game timer keep ticking during the saving animation? And does it keep ticking during the teleport animation and the elevator animation? Because all those animations are faster here on the emulator. So if so there is a chance that the emulator could have given me a significant unfair advantage and would kind of disqualify this as a run, essentially. But yeah, still, it's that has to be kept in mind, but still, it's interesting to think about and just pay attention to the fact that the fastest run recorded for a hard mode 100% glitchless is 8 hours, 12 minutes, 58 seconds. Now, all this kind of goes to another thing I wanted to backtrack on a bit. I know earlier in my commentary of, like, one of the other episodes, I kind of mentioned how speed game for Metroid is kind of not my thing. I almost feel like that mindset partially stems from how much worse I was at these games years ago when I played them. I think I'm definitely gonna need the, time slowing here. I think just me being a lot worse at the games kind of contributed to that mindset of me not enjoying the idea of trying to go through them fast. But in my recent kind of Metroid kick, where I played through a bunch of them, I got some decent times for, like, not really practicing, in some cases going in blind, not really planning my route, and, like, knowing full well what I'm doing at every given moment. I got some okay times. And I actually do feel, for some of these games, that I could have some fun trying to get the best ending. It's not something, for the most part, that I think I'm going to do right now, because I've been playing Metroid a lot, and I'm kind of winding down on that. Honestly, if it wasn't for wanting to record the LP, I probably wouldn't replay Dread right now, but I think I'll still have fun playing it. But yeah, I am hitting that point where I'm about ready to take a break and play other things. But, so Area 2 you can get 100%, the next couple areas are like that too. But yeah, I think in the future sometime, I could see maybe having some fun trying to get under 3 hours in Super Metroid, and maybe trying to get under 4 hours in this game, especially, like, I don't think I'd want to try and do under 4 hours 100%, but just regular old under 4 hours, skipping as many items as need be to help me do that, I think I could enjoy trying to get that time. And I'm not positive about this, but I may even, after I do my first run of hard mode for the recording, I may try and do another run in like sections where kind of like I practice a chunk of it and then reset and then actually play it for real and then save and then practice the next part and so forth, and try to get under 4 hours hard mode on Dread. I'm not sure I'm gonna do that, but I might do it, because if I did too, then I could show off the gallery unlocks for that. And but yeah, I mean, I think some of these, a lot of the Metroid games, I don't think I'd really enjoy with Metroid 2 on the Game Boy, because that game's just clunky enough that I don't think I'd really enjoy trying to go through it again for a faster time, but AM2R maybe. I think one of the other big things that my feelings stem from of like not enjoying the idea of trying to go through as fast as possible would be a couple of the last games I played years ago. The last Metroid game I played, like, years ago, and then, one of the ones I played more recently, too. Metroid Fusion and Zero Mission, basically. The pair of those have some absurdly ridiculous requirements for some of the, like, gallery unlocks. Wait, which... Sorry, I was just, like, getting distracted, but because I am actually watching the video, too, so I can comment on some things here and there. I was wondering if this was a certain puzzle, but I think I was thinking of a different one. But yeah, Metroid Fusion, and especially Zero Mission, ask a lot of you. Particularly, what I don't really care for, personally, is how they have... So... They tie the ending, quote-unquote, like what CG you get at the end, to both time spent and item completion. I feel... my sinuses are acting up a little bit. I hope that doesn't come through too much. On the one hand, more like casually, not worrying about trying to get the best ending, I sort of like that, because it means that even if you're slow, you're rewarded for going and getting 100% items. And I kind of like that. Although, I feel what would be even nicer would be if you had just separate unlocks. Like, you had a gallery image that, or images that you could get for getting 100% items, which was separate from the unlocks you get for how fast you get to the ending, and that's, like, not affected by, item percentage. This is the one I was thinking of. I had fun sitting here, like, seeing if I could do this without slowing down time. And, with the gravity suit, yeah, sure, you can just do it. And, by the time you have the power to slow down time, you're near the gravity suit anyway, so yeah, you can very easily just not worry about slowing down time there. But it would make it easier. But yeah, having the two tied together, item percentage and completion time, I end up not liking that, because that's a bit much for me. Like, I think Zero Mission has an ending CG that you unlock by beating the game, 100% item completion in under 2 hours, and that's just absurd to me. I cannot see me personally ever enjoying trying to get that, especially with some of the speed booster puzzles and everything. Yeah, I don't care for that. That's why I could see having fun. I could see having fun now, since I'm kind of okay at these games now. I could see having fun with, like, Dread and this and Super Metroid, AM2R, because all of them, it's just completion time. It doesn't factor in how many items you get, so you can skip as many items as you need to skip in order to help you get through faster. Having to get 100% and get a really fast time is just, that's too much for me. I don't like that, but because the fast times, like the under 4 hours, under 3 hours kind of thing in these games, is not too strict if you are skipping items. If you wanted to get everything, then yeah, it's very tight, much like the under 2 hours, 100% is very tight, but there's a pretty decent amount of leeway if you're skipping items. You don't have to be, like, perfect at the game. You just basically have to know what you're doing reasonably well and not screw up too much on the execution. But I mean, I think getting the best ending is not necessarily too high of a skill ceiling. It's all down to, like, the hardest part of it might be having, like, less health to work with, but, you know, you skip what you can, get what you have to, and see if you can go fast enough. I think I could have fun with that. So yeah, I just wanted to backtrack on that idea that I just don't like going through these games fast. I think I actually could enjoy trying to improve my times in these. So, okay, yeah, I covered everything up to this point. I think... Oh, that's what this note meant. I mentioned something about translation stuff, and, like, the way this game and Dread handled translation compared to previous ones. And I feel like I got a little carried away when I brought that up, because there's not that much difference. Like, I mentioned an item being translated differently, but, again, I don't want to talk too much about Dread before we even get there, but since I brought that up before, it's not like they change too much in how they translate, like, classic item names and stuff. I can only really think of the one returning classic item offhand that did get translated differently. Really, like, all that talk about the translation really just came from the idea of, like, Other M and how they handled it, because that's a game. I know people who say that ruined the whole series for them. I feel that's a bit of a strong reaction, because from my perspective, why let one game ruin how you feel about a whole series? That doesn't really make sense to me, but I mean, that's up to each person to decide, so, you know, it's whatever. But, and, like, too, Other M is interesting because it covers something that Metroid Fusion kind of alludes to. But at the same time, I don't think Metroid Other M contributes to the overall canon in any other meaningful way. Like, basically the whole point is that Metroid Fusion has a posthumous character. In other words, a character who, at the time of, like, in Fusion, they talk about a character who is already dead. And, Fusion came out before Other M, but Other M retroactively shows that character when they were alive. But the thing is, outside of that, Other M doesn't really contribute anything to the overall canon. You can completely ignore the fact that Other M exists, and you're not really missing anything about the plot. Even the fact that you get to see that one character alive is just kind of like... It's... I feel they get characterized differently in Other M a little bit than they are in Fusion, so it's almost kind of weird to take Other M as canon at that point. You might as well just ignore it, to be honest. Except, I say that, but a lot of my opinion on how Other M handles its characters and its plot stems from the localization. This is all stuff I learned about kind of more recently, and it's very interesting. I didn't write down too many notes about this, but there's a guy who did a video about this, about the way that Other M was translated, and how that differs from maybe kind of the way it comes across in the original, like, Japanese and everything, because of the way they changed things and simplified things, and how that just kind of messes things up. And Fusion is guilty of it too, but it did more damage in the case of Other M, since that game had so much plot going on. I think I will link the video I'm talking about in a pinned comment on this video, so you could go watch it if you want. And I'll also throw a link to the same person who talks about this. Did a fan localization of sorts for Other M, where they took the Japanese version and subtitled it, and they didn't. They even say they didn't do it one-to-one. Like, they didn't do it literal. They kind of took some liberties too. They just tried to keep it a lot more faithful to the original intent while doing wordings in a way that maybe makes sense and don't come across as awkward. Like, for instance, the one thing I picked up on was the fact that in Other M, you can hear, even in the Japanese dialogue, they refer to a mysterious person going around. They refer to them as the deleter. And even in the Japanese, if you're listening for it, you can hear them say the English word deleter. But this guy just put in the subtitles, like, refer to them as the assassin or something like that. So there are liberties, but overall he tried to make it a lot more faithful to what they were trying to do with the characters. And so you could go watch the fan translation, you could go watch the guy talk about it. The only thing I'll warn you about maybe with it is to keep a little bit of an open mind, because the guy is a little bit zealous about it. It almost comes across like he's going a little too hard, trying to defend Other M in some ways, like he might be overselling it, and the way he does his commentary, he has a little bit of a flair. He has a little bit of a flair for the dramatic, and there's nothing wrong with that. That can be a cool way to present things. I'm only pointing it out because I know that might not be everyone's cup of tea, so just be aware that that's what you're getting into. But I think he did a fantastic job covering his points, even if you don't necessarily agree with, like, everything he has to say. Because, like I said, he can be maybe a little bit zealous in how much he defends Other M. He still has a lot of good points and a lot of good information he brings to the table, especially when it comes to, just in particular, how they handle the translation of things. Because some of the biggest problems I have with the characterization of, like, Samus and the character named Adam Malkovich seems to be a problem of the localization and not a problem of the original writing. For me, at least. So, if you... It might be something interesting for you to check out. But yeah, another thing I wanted to go into, I guess, just a thing to go into to fill air a little bit. Other M really had some unfortunate timing. And I feel its effects on the series are still being felt, even now. That might be something I could address a little bit later. But, like, not even in this LP. But, I think here I decided to just use a power bomb because it was easier. I wonder... Actually, how else would you even get over there? I think that's kind of... Oh, no. You could slow down time. You could slow down time and then jump off from those fall blocks, and, yeah, that would work. But yeah, it's just... Other M came out, and it was met so poorly here in the like, English-speaking world because of the way the localization was handled, maybe more than anything, but one way or the other, it's like... It's unfortunate, too, because I appreciate what it was trying to do. Trying to tell a more involved and cinematic story in Metroid. I think that idea is cool if done well. It just... I think it was done passably, in terms of the original writing. It was not... Maybe not great or perfect, but I think it was passable. It's really just the localization that kind of ruins it, to me at least. Not everyone will agree with that, I don't think, actually. But I think I do feel that way. I still need to go actually watch like the fan translation and really see how I feel after that, because some of my opinion right now I'm just basing on what I've heard so far about the difference in translation, but I really need to like sit down and watch the whole game's collection of cutscenes, fan-subbed, and see how I feel about it after that. But yeah, anyway, getting off track. It was received so poorly in the West, and just the immediate effect of that was even kind of obvious, because like, let's see, what was this note I put here? Oh, I guess... Okay. So, Other M came out, right? And yeah, like I said, it was received poorly. And then 6 whole years went by where there was just nothing mentioned about any Metroid game being like in development or anything. The only thing in development really was like the fan remake of Metroid 2 and 2R, and that's the only thing fans really had to latch onto. Yeah, Other M really just kind of seemed to have stalled out the series for a while. And this kind of goes to, this was actually me describing how, like, Nintendo kind of burned a lot of, goodwill with their fans, which unfortunately I think kind of came back to bite them with this game a bit. Because this game just... Samus Returns just had such an unfortunate release timing. It came out at the end of the 3DS's life. Like, the Switch was already out, I think. I'm pretty sure... looks like I forgot to put a note about that. No, the Switch wasn't out yet. But it was coming out really soon. The Switch was almost out, I guess. At least according to my notes here. So yeah, just... Nintendo really burned their goodwill with their fans from the fact it's like... Metroid Fusion came out... This is in 2016, and it's like, Metroid Fusion came out 14 years ago at that point. Metroid Prime 3 came out nearly 10 years ago. So the last good game came out like 10 years ago. Other M came out, even Other M came out 6 years ago, nothing. Another Metroid 2 remake, the fan game, was finally released, and then Nintendo's lawyers just like immediately pulled it. And asked it to be taken down. And then the only thing Metroid related that Nintendo announces is that weird spin-off Federation Force. And it's not until, like, the following year, the Switch comes out, and then after the Switch comes out, this game, Samus Returns, is announced, and then, like, a few months later released. Oh, anyway, I'm gonna cut the video here, because I don't want it to get too long, but I'll see you next time for more backtracking, so take care, and I'll see you then.